kids are playing with. Nearly 2/3 of all young people try an illicit drug before they finish high school. 20 million Americans currently use marijuana. Over 4 million are abusers of cocaine. 17 million are involved in alcohol-related accidents. For help, call Habilitat's toll-free crisis information and referral hotline now. 1-800-USA-2525. Don't play games with drugs.
This is your TV station, 5TV.
Behind the Iran arms scandal, a look inside the just-released Senate report.
I think it does paint a picture of the process of making foreign policy that was in real disarray and creates serious problems for the country.
Good evening, I'm Ted Koppel, and this is Nightline.
Foreign policy was in part here being made by those who you might categorize as amateurs.
What's in the Senate Intelligence Committee report that we didn't know before, and at whom does it point the finger? Among our guests, the chairman of the committee, Senator David Boren of Oklahoma.
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
It was only this evening at 6 that the Senate Intelligence Committee finally released its findings on the Iran-Contra affair. What may ultimately be even more significant than what the committee has uncovered is a list of 14 items at the end of the report under the heading Unresolved Issues. Among those unresolved issues, the role played by members of the White House staff in the sale of arms to Iran and the possible diversion of funds to the Contras. In other words, the most central, fundamental issue. Who in the White House did what remains unresolved. But as our Senate correspondent Brit Hume now reports, the Intelligence Committee has sifted through a mountain of evidence and testimony to produce the most authoritative version of the story yet.
The report is a dense, factual chronicle of the Iran affair, the first official account of the case that has yet emerged. It portrays White House officials acting outside channels, preoccupied with American hostages and egged on by Israeli officials and foreign arms merchants as being drawn into an illicit relationship with Iran that became a fiasco. Here is how some of the key figures emerge. President Reagan, not deeply involved and concerned above all with American hostages. No evidence he knew of any money diverted to the Contras in Nicaragua. Secretary of State Schultz and Defense Secretary Weinberger, opponents of arms sales to Iran but not fully informed or consulted. Former Reagan National Security Advisor McFarlane, the original point of contact in the effort by the Israelis to draw the U.S. into a relationship with Iran, a relationship they told him early might help get hostages out, but might also lead to requests for arms. His successor, John Poindexter, a man who inherited and continued the Iran connection, a man with a taste for secrecy, for keeping things from other White House officials and from Congress. Former Reagan National Security Assistant Oliver North, an activist aide with an agenda ranging from hostage release to Contra resupply, missions he ultimately fused with a plan to use Iran arms money to fund the Contras. CIA Director Casey, in on the arms deals early and made aware well before it became public that money might have been diverted, something he failed to report to the House and Senate when he finally did brief them on Iran. Iranian arms merchant Monikher Ghorbanifar, a player in the U.S.-Iran connection from the beginning, a man with a dubious reputation who flunked a CIA lie detector test and at one point during all this was jailed for a day in Switzerland, apparently in connection with one of the arms deals that went sour. White House Chief of Staff Regan, a man who knew what was going on but kept facts from Secretary of State Schultz, and whose sworn account of how the first arms shipment was approved does not square with that of McFarlane. A few new details. Evidence of a bank account in the Cayman Islands, a possible receptacle for Iran arms money which may have been diverted to the Contras, but which the committee could not establish the Contras ever got. Even so, Oliver North reportedly said the Israelis deposited Iran arms money in a Swiss bank account meant for the Contras, money he believed the Contras got. Also, the Voice of America, at the request of the National Security Council, broadcast for 3 days last year an editorial praising Iran for refusing to grant landing rights to hijackers of a Pan Am flight. The White House tonight said the president is pleased this report is out, although it certainly isn't flattering to him. Mr. Reagan and his aides have evidently concluded they are going to take their lumps in the official reports on this case, but that getting them out may be the only way to stop the daily pounding they have taken as the story has emerged piecemeal in the news media. This is Brit Hume for Nightline on Capitol Hill.
With us now live in our Washington Bureau is the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, David Boren of Oklahoma, who is also a member of the Special Senate Committee named to investigate the Iran arms scandal. Do you think that the White House is correct in its assumption that this thing is now going to be put to rest? Here it is. Here's the report. Now we can all forget about it and move on?
Well, Ted, I don't think we have final answers to the questions yet. If I was going to use 3 words to describe the report we put out, one of them would be preliminary, because after all, the central questions are still not answered. We've not heard from the main witnesses, from North, Poindexter, Secord, and others. We've not traced the chain of money all the way through to the final resting place. We can't say for sure who got the money and how much money they received, or how high up the chain of command knowledge of this operation went. So there's still many unanswered questions. I think what we have done is make a fair summary to date of the facts presented to us. And of course, with this 14-to-1 vote, we've done it in a bipartisan fashion. And I think it's very important that here we're dealing with national security, and it's a place where partisan politics should not be injected.
All right, let's take some of the issues that have been raised in this report, Senator. On the one hand, we have an image of the president kind of disengaged, with the exception of the hostage issue.
Yes.
And yet, the president meeting, what, on 24 separate occasions with groups of people, each time including Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North.
Yes, there's some really odd meetings that take place when you examine the record. There were 24 meetings with Colonel North. All of these apparently with other people, or at least they initially began with other people, according to the White House logs. But there's some very unusual groups. For example, a CIA official, not a high-ranking one, but a CIA official dispatched to a Central American country, who has since been disciplined by the CIA for improper contacts with the Contras. He's brought in by Colonel North, along with an official of that Caribbean country, or Central American country rather, to meet with the president. Very unusual meeting. The director of the CIA not present, cabinet officers not present, but Mr. Reagan present. So there's some very unusual groups of people that you wouldn't normally expect to see meeting with the President of the United States, having meetings with him.
Now, how do you, I'm a little bit confused by, again, this notion of a disengaged president, and yet a president who had 24 such meetings. He must have known something.
Well, I think you can't draw any exact conclusion from that, because the record on the face of it doesn't always say even what was discussed. But I think it's certainly a matter that would be worthy of pursuit by the new special committee. And we hope that the information that we've passed on to them, and we've done this in a very factual way, we've not tried to jump to any conclusions at this point. We hope that this will give them leads for further inquiry and will help them speed their efforts, because after all, we have so many other serious problems the country is facing.
Quick question on another issue that just comes looming out, I mean, in several sections of the report, and that is the extraordinary role that the Israelis played throughout all of this. They seem to have had a very activist role in this. To what end, do you think?
There's no doubt. I think that they, of course, have their own interests at stake. They do not want to see an Iranian collapse in the war with the Iraqis. They've had their own problems with the Iraqis in the past. They've always been on the front lines fighting against the Israelis. It's very interesting to me that not only do we have the members of the Israeli government playing a very large role in this matter, but we have private citizens. For example, like Mr. Ladine, a part-time consultant with the National Security Council, who is over meeting with the Prime Minister of Israel, meeting with agents of the Iranians, meeting with arms dealers, and very much, in essence, negotiating as an agent of the government. And you have Secretary Schultz, as we explain in our report, complaining about that. Why are private people out speaking for the United States government, bypassing the State Department? And he warns again and again, the Secretary of State, that we have to be careful. We must make our own estimates, because Israel, after all, being a part of the Middle East itself, will have interests that are not always exactly the same as our own.
Senator Boren, hang in if you would, please. When we come back, we're going to be joined by a couple of other guests, but I want to talk to you about what may be the most important issue here that has received, in a sense, the least coverage, and that is the fact that our overall foreign policy seems to have been conducted in kind of a ramshackle, amateurish way. Let's talk about that. And when we come back, we'll look at what this latest information on the Iran arms scandal is likely to mean for the president and the public, as we talk with 2 veteran newspapermen who've been watching it all from opposite ends of the country. Frank McCulloch, managing editor of the San Francisco Examiner, and Arnaud de Borchgrave, editor-in-chief of the Washington Times.
This is ABC News Nightline. Brought to you by Dow.
You're on your way. The world is opening its doors.
Dear Dad, just got back from my interview with Dow. Sounds like my kind of research. Finding new ways to grow more food, ways to help sick people. I'm going to go for it, Dad. And I'm going to try to make you proud.
Yes, you can make a difference in what tomorrow brings.
Love, David.
'Cause Dow lets you do great things.
What it can do on a dry highway, you're ready for an Audi.
Of all the movies you can see this year, only one has been acclaimed by every single critic. Vincent Canby of the New York Times calls it a singular achievement, exceptionally moving. A great movie, 2 big thumbs up, say Siskel and Ebert. Mike Clark of USA Today gives it 4 stars as the year's most powerful film. See the one David Denby of New York Magazine calls a great American movie, Platoon, rated R.
Starts Friday, January 30th at a theater near you. Check newspaper for showtimes.
Time is running out. The gigantic furniture clearance at Homemakers East and Homemakers West is in the final days. Additional markdowns have been taken. Lazy Boy, Bassett, Broyhill up to 50% off. One-of-a-kind, discontinued items. Bargains at Homemakers like Sealy mattress and box springs, bedroom groups, dining sets, Soma flotation mattresses up to 1/2 off. Price cuts, bargains, and no payments, no interest till April 87 with approved credit. But time is running out. You must act now. Homemakers East on Hubble, Homemakers West on Douglas, Iowa's largest furniture stores.
These people have something in common. All were ABC News Person of the Week. Friday we'll choose again, and who it is may surprise you. Watch World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
We did some checking and we found that the release of the Senate Intelligence Committee report will be the lead item in tomorrow's editions of the Boston Globe, the Atlanta Constitution, the Miami Herald, the New York Times, and the Washington Post. An indication of how journalists around the country view the importance of this issue. Joining us live now in our San Francisco bureau is Frank McCulloch, managing editor of the San Francisco Examiner, and here in our Washington bureau, Arnaud de Borchgrave, editor-in-chief of the Washington Times. Frank, will it be the lead item tomorrow in the Examiner?
Almost certainly.
How about Arnaud in the Washington Times?
Yes,
tomorrow?
Ted, no question about it, but I'm afraid that while we journalists are intensely interested in this story, we're boring the rest of the country to death.
Well, that was going to be my next point. I mean, is this, in effect, going to put the story to bed for a while, do you think?
Well, tonight, Ted, I had dinner with Senator Claiborne Pell, the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, who told me exactly what Senator Pete Wilson of California told me a few days ago, and Mr. Zirinsky of Nebraska, a Democrat. The story is not playing outside the Beltway. Witness the mail they're getting, which is almost zero.
Frank McCulloch, you're about as far outside the Beltway as it gets. How's it playing on the West Coast?
I think I agree with Arnold in that the readership, I think, is limited. Mr. Gallup tells us that. A lot of people tell us that, but I don't know that that puts the story away. I disagree on that. The story is going to be here for a long time to come, and if we will do a little recollection, I think at this stage in Watergate, the interest was extremely limited, too. Well, Frank, I wasn't trying to suggest that the story is going to go away, but I will just quote Senator Pell as saying he thinks it's going to be fairly quiescent for 4 or 5 months until new revelations come out, when interest will be rekindled.
Yeah, let me ask you both, Frank McCulloch, what is it that we're still looking for here? I mean, this report is, 65 single-spaced pages. There's a great deal of detail. It'll take us a while to digest it all. I suspect there'll be stories coming out of it for the next 2 or 3 days. But what else are we looking for?
Who got the dough, Ted? Yeah, but where did the money go, and by whose authority did it move? Were the middlemen, the people who got the dough? Because it seems pretty certain at this point that the Contras themselves did not get any money. Perhaps those who were assisting the Contras, but not the Contras themselves. My own guess is that middlemen like Mr. Hakim and General Secord got their percentage, whatever it was, along the way.
Now, Frank, if that is so, let's assume it is so for the sake of argument. So what? I mean, it's a 1-day run, a 2-day run.
Correct.
Not a major story, though, right?
Well, of course it's a major story. At issue here is whether the U.S. government functioned within its own laws. And that's yet to be determined. And how far, you know, the cliche stands.
Well,
who knew what and when.
Frank, surely that'll be argued by lawyers for years to come as to whether or not the Boland Amendment was actually violated.
I think so, Arnaud, but that's the reason it's alive. That's
well,
the reason the story will be alive.
let me pick up with both of you, and then we'll bring Senator Boren back into the discussion. What I think is really a much larger issue, and that is, as one reconstructs what happened over the last year and a half or 2 years, it looks as though there was an incredibly amateurish, and indeed the Senate Intelligence Report reflects this, an incredibly amateurish kind of foreign policy in which the pros over at the State Department, at the Pentagon, to a certain degree even at the CIA, were frozen out, and indeed a bunch of people working from the White House and then folks who had been in government in one form or another, who were kind of hired on an as-per basis, were conducting foreign policy without any regard to the effect that it would have in other parts of the world.
But Ted, surely you should see that in the context, it seems to me, of what has happened during the past 12 years, where we have had one congressional amendment after another that has gradually undercut the executive in the exercise of its principal responsibility, national and international security. So there's been a temptation to go around Congress over and over again.
Yeah, but I mean, I was simply talking about how big a story that is, Frank.
Well, I take a different view with that, Arnaud. I think what we're looking at here is the existence of, if you want to call it, an old boys club that's been out there for a very, very long time, and it has been extra-governmental. At times, its members are in the government, times they're out of it, and it's very difficult to determine when they're in or out of it. It has functioned sometimes in the interest of the United States and sometimes in its own interest over a very long period of time, dating back probably to the Bay of Pigs and to the Congo, and come forward through every conflict in which the United States has had an interest since then. And I think that's what's been functioning, and sometimes I think it's deliberately employed by the United States and its policymakers as an instrument of U.S. foreign policy, and sometimes I think, as Arnaud does, that it functions very much on its own.
All right, gentlemen, let's take a break. We'll continue our discussion, and we'll come back with Senator Boren in just a moment.
Every man she marries mysteriously dies.
She married 3 different men. She killed all of them.
That's not something you see a woman do.
Which part you figure a woman isn't up to, the seduction or the murder?
Alex Barnes has uncovered the truth.
You don't quit your job to go chasing after some phantom.
I know I'm right.
But proving it could be fatal. Deborah Winger, Teresa Russell, Black Widow. She mates and she kills. Rated R. Starts Friday, February 6th at a theater near you.
I practically live out of a suitcase, so I always make the quality choice. I call this number for a luxury room at any Clarion hotel. Or I call the same number for a big, comfortable room at a mid-price quality inn. Or, when my budget's tight, I call for reservations at a Comfort Inn. So, for budget, mid-priced, luxury accommodations, or even a suite, call 800-221-2222 and make the quality choice. How come he always gets the big one?
Planning a trip to Europe, Hawaii, Disneyland, or any other place in the world? Then come to Jefferson Tours' $1 Million World Travel and Vacation Show. Come win valuable prizes like free airline tickets to London via TWA. Everyone wins generous discounts on all the vacations in Jefferson's big brochure of U.S. and international tours. Meet many exhibitors who want to help you take your dream vacation. All at the $1 Million Jefferson's World Travel and Vacation Show. Saturday and Sunday afternoon in the Des Moines Convention Center. Be there. Be a winner.
It happens only once a year, so don't miss it. Payless Cashway's home remodeling sale. Extra savings in every department to get you started on your project. Like this Kincaid tub enclosure. Everyday low price $37.99, now only $29.99. And save on bath vanities. Price from $24.99 to $279.99. Come on, there's lots more. This is the big one. The once a year home remodeling sale going on now at Payless Cashway.
Don't do it yourself without us.
Payless Cashways.
Did anyone ever say to you there are always choices? Most of the time that seems true enough. Everyday life is filled with opportunities to make decisions, to make a choice. At 5 o'clock, we've made it easy for you. If you want helpful, informative, factual news, there's only one choice. 5 TV's Iowa News Today. The news in Des Moines has never looked better.
There's a new kid in
On The Health Show with Kathleen Sullivan, the latest on fish oil.
I'm Joan London. Next week, Good Morning America takes you to Hollywood. Visit the studios and hear from your favorite TV and movie personalities. Next week on Good Morning America.
With us again now, Senator David Boren, Frank McCulloch, and Arnaud de Borchgrave. Senator Boren, let me pick up on a point that Frank McCulloch was making a moment ago, namely the extraordinary role played by people who were once in government but were, at the time of these events, outside government. For example, it seems that some of the profits from the sale of the arms to Iran went into bank accounts that were controlled solely by former Major General Richard Secord and 2 former members of the CIA. Illegalities involved there, or is this just the government trying to use folks on the outside to keep other people, both in government and in Congress and the public, from finding out what was going on?
Well, I think there's not anything necessarily wrong on the face of it to use people who've once been in the government to come back and help, but the way in which they were used here is really and truly extraordinary. They were not only just funneling money, they were obviously having a lot to do with the policy. They were negotiating. They were negotiating about how fast would hostages be released and how fast would the flow of arms then be put in. You had, as I mentioned, Mr. Ladine actually sitting down with the Prime Minister of Israel and negotiating. You had people like Mr. Ghorbanifar, who, according to our report, consistently flunked CIA lie detector tests, providing advice to Mr. McFarlane on what he should be doing. So not only just Americans had been in the government, but even foreign nationals here involved in influencing policy. And at the same time, you have our own Secretary of State, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the top advisors to the President, with the greatest amount of expertise, being closed out of the whole process. And then you have a Chief of Staff at the White House. And I think this is very unusual. Mr. Regan, who is somehow putting on the President's schedule low-level CIA officials in Central American countries, lower echelon people coming in with Colonel North to meet with the President at the same time that he doesn't seem to be making sure that the advice of the Secretary of State is getting through. So you have to wonder, what is the keeper of the gate doing? Was he doing his job to make sure the President got the best possible advice, or was he almost preventing that advice from getting through?
Now, you have said, and I've heard you say it today, that you think the President was really kind of disengaged as far as the broader policy question of opening up new channels to Iran was concerned, but very much engaged on the issue of the hostages. Tell me what you meant.
I think that's right. I think he perhaps started out by wanting to reopen a relationship with the moderates in Iran. But I don't think we would have ever used arms as the method. You simply wouldn't have gone to the point of sending arms to a country that had been branded as guilty of terrorism, and obviously had held American hostages, American diplomats. You wouldn't have used arms as a means of reopening channels of communication. It was when the hostage question got involved that they switched to arms as a sign of good faith. And very clearly, there would be discussions back and forth. We're not going to send any more arms unless you release another hostage. And then we'll consider sending more arms. So the timetable of arms shipments became very much related to hostage release or projected hostage releases.
Now, when people in the administration say, as they have said repeatedly, there was never a hostage for arms exchange. There was never that kind of a deal envisioned, and there was never any such deal that was actually carried through. You're convinced that there is still the possibility they're telling the truth on that, or does all the evidence convince you otherwise?
Well, I think that perhaps they went into it with that feeling, and perhaps the President himself went into it with that feeling. But after a very short period of time, it's just clear as you read the documents and the communications that are in our report that they really were timing the shipment of arms, coordinating it with the release of hostages, and using it as a mechanism to bargain for it. And I think we can understand how in human terms, and I don't criticize the President for his human sympathy for the hostages and their families, but I think you can see how he could get caught up in that, and especially if he was not getting warning signals from his Secretary of State, who was very often in the dark, saying, look, Mr. President, think about the overall impact on our policy against terrorism. How are other countries going to view this when we ask them to join with us in this war on terrorism if they find out that we're secretly sending arms by a back channel? So it was a real breakdown, I think, of communication. It was policy by amateurs and not by the top advisors. And also Congress was shut out. And if there's anything we need to do in this country, it's to rebuild a bipartisan foreign policy again and rebuild some mutual trust between the executive and congressional branches. I agree with what I heard Arnaud say before, that Congress sometimes overreacts, and it's a two-way street. We're going to have to rebuild that trust of the kind we used to have between Eisenhower and Rayburn and get back to presenting one voice from the Congress and from both parties when it comes to foreign policy.
All right, I want to hear again from Arnaud de Borchgrave and Frank McCulloch. We will do that when we come back after this break. We'll continue our discussion in a moment.
The tax laws are changing. The deductions on interest are changing. So maybe you should apply for a card that doesn't charge interest. The American Express card. Apply over the phone by calling 1-800-THE-CARD.
Guess what's coming to dinner? New Le Menu Light Style. Elegant dinners like sherry glazed chicken with seasoned rice. All under 350 calories. Satisfy your taste for the good things in life with Le Menu Light Style dinners.
Tower. I'm seeing UFOs.
Say again, Color Tile 1.
I'm surrounded by UFOs. Unbelievable, fantastic offers from Color Tile. It's half-price ceramic wall and floor tile, half-price mosaic tile, half-price paint, half-price wall covering.
Color Tile 1, what is your direction of flight?
To Color Tile's big half-price UFO sale. With out-of-this-world savings now through Sunday.
Sometimes it's hard to find the words that say just what you're feeling, but deep inside you really want to show you love her, and so for all that she has given you, you can say it with a diamond in her heart. She got a diamond.
Give her what her heart wants most, a diamond.
Now, Lincoln Mercury Mercure brings you the highest quality American cars with 3.9% financing, plus up to $600 cash back on Mercury Topaz, Lynx, and Mercure XR4 Ti. Remember, our cars have been rated the best-built American cars for 6 consecutive years. And now we back it up with a 6-year, 60,000-mile powertrain warranty. So don't think only of low finance rates. Consider the quality of the product. See your Lincoln Mercury Mercure dealer now.
Continuing our conversation now with Frank McCulloch of the San Francisco Examiner and with Arnaud de Borchgrave of the Washington Times. Gentlemen, you're both in positions of telling your reporters what you want them to go after. Frank, you're going to pursue this story, or as far as you are concerned, is it largely written?
No. We'll to the extent our resources permit, we'll continue to pursue it. We'll pursue it at as many ends of it as we can reach. By which I mean essentially Washington and Central America. And we will be doing as much reporting in both those places as we can possibly manage.
Why?
Because to repeat, I believe it's as important an issue and important a news story as the American public has had before it in a very long time.
Arnaud, how about you? I assume you're also going to keep your reporters hot on it, but why?
My instructions to my newsroom staff, Ted, are to hit hard in any direction, provided it's fair and justified. But please, for God's sake, let's keep some sense of historical perspective. We're talking about a diversion of money to the Contras, for example. Well, what about a Secretary of State a long time ago who was trying to purchase Alaska from the Russians and couldn't get $7 million from Congress? What did he do? He went around Congress and borrowed the $7 million from a bank. And that's how we got Alaska. And it paid itself back within a year with gold.
I think you ought to be a little careful that, Arnold. Let's not get involved in ends justify means there.
No, I'm not. I'm just suggesting that if President Kennedy had an unfriendly Congress, he would have been impeached for having destroyed what was at that point still, I think, the best piece of foreign policy in the history of this country, the Monroe Doctrine.
Well, it's an imperfect government, as all governments are, and particularly an open government such as this. But I think American people have a right to believe that this government, essentially, and to the extent it can, levels with it, tells it the truth, and functions within its own laws.
Well said, Senator.
All right. That wasn't the senator. That was Mr. McCulloch, who may have aspirations in that direction, but thanks anyway. My thanks to all of you, Arnaud de Borchgrave, Frank McCulloch, and, of course, Senator David Boren. Good of you to join us this evening.
Thank you, Ted.
Watch World News Tonight with Peter Jennings tomorrow to find out whom ABC News has chosen as its Person of the Week. That's our report for tonight. I'm Ted Koppel in Washington. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.
I work for a large corporation, sometimes 10 hours a day, and yet I still find time to teach a 50-year-old man how to read street signs in his neighborhood. Some of my co-workers are doing the same.
I'm helping a carpenter become more successful.
I'm the mother of a 2-year-old, and I still find time to help someone learn to read.
We've helped a Vietnam veteran learn how to read.
And now he's going to college.
I'm helping a mother who wants to read to her children.
It's never too late to learn to read.
This has been ABC News Nightline. If you wish a printed transcript of this or any Nightline broadcast, please send $3 to Nightline Transcripts, 2 John Street, New York, New York, 10038. Nightline is a presentation of ABC News.
This is your TV station, 5 TV.
There, the ransom money now is all yours.